Tonight, championship, check.
It's what needs to be up there right now, right? We're champions.
What they actually did for the city is absolutely amazing.
The country celebrates a win 24 years in the making. So, where does Canadian basketball go from here? Plus, the next phase of legal pot.
Our motivation is and will always be to protect our kids.
Edibles are set to go legal this year, but tight regulations could keep them off shelves for a while.
To start your tour, you're several $1,000s in before you even touch down on the ground.
And the show must go on north of 60. Meet the musicians determined to play all of Canada, no matter the cost. This is The National. Last night, nerves were frayed across the country as the Toronto Raptors fought for NBA supremacy. But today, a victory parade is in the works, and the city has not stopped celebrating the team's historic triumph. By winning the NBA championship and bringing that trophy back home, the Raptors have done something no Canadian team in the NBA has done before. The entire country is brimming with pride. But let's start with Chris Glover at the heart of Raptors country, Toronto.
From late-night viewing parties at elementary schools to parties big and bigger, this was the moment the whole country was waiting for.
Basketball was invented by a Canadian. The first NBA game was in Toronto. And now, your 2019 NBA champions, the Toronto Raptors.
The pride spilled into the street instantaneously. For those of us out partying late last night, voices a little sore, feeling a bit tired. It's hard to imagine, but someone's been working hard. This now famous mural in downtown Toronto, already updated with the big trophy.
It's what needs to be up there right now, right? We're champions.
And fans were just as fast to grab a picture of the tourist attraction.
It's like the pride of having, you know, like that. The whole country came together for one team.
They deserve the support, though.
They did.
Like, what they actually did for the city is absolutely amazing.
Champions! Champions!
Canada's first NBA championship basketball team is now the lesson of the day.
When I came to school, it was like the best party ever.
Championship Raptors gear is flying off store shelves so fast, reinforcements have already been ordered.
Just outstanding. We're proud.
This doesn't come around probably maybe once in your lifetime.
It's true, it's been a few decades since Canada's seen a win this big in pro sports. Or a party this big. Tens of thousands of people converged on Toronto after the Blue Jays won back-to-back World Series titles in the 90s. Toronto has grown since then, so Monday's Raps parade is expected to be even bigger. And a fan base famous for getting ahead of itself, already at it again.
We want double now, next year as well.
No pressure, guys. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Okay, now I will say this. The Raptors are probably used to pressure. They withstood a lot of it to earn these moments of glory. But the question of a repeat is already in the air. So we asked Stephen D'Souza to examine the Raptors' winning strategy and to consider whether that magic can last.
This was a season of improbables. Never before has a team president taken the gamble Masai Ujiri did, firing the coach of the year, trading away the team's heart and soul, and bringing in a superstar who came loaded with talent and lingering health questions.
I text Kyle probably a day later or the day that I got traded and told him, let's go out and do something special.
Never before has a team tried load management, an innovative new program to help Kawhi Leonard recover. He sat out 22 regular season games. Never in 50 years has a team won a championship without a top 10 draft pick playing for them in the playoffs.
We got guys who had to get it the long way, who had to get it out the mud, who had to get it against the grain.
Never in 15 years has a team won without a regular season MVP on its roster. All Toronto had was an unstoppable force whose cold-blooded determination became the team's persona.
And when you see your star player not worried about anything, not cracking under pressure, your teammates are going to follow.
But now the future is uncertain. Will Masai Ujiri get lured away to another team? Will Pascal Siakam continue his evolution? And the $190 million question, will Kawhi stay? A free agent in 2 weeks, Toronto can offer the most money, but family considerations make California teams an attractive option.
Nobody really knows. So the Raptors, I think, have a good chance. But as you know, the old adage says, Steve, happy wife, happy family, happy life.
The reasons to stay are compelling. A team just realizing its full potential, the love of an entire country.
You know, I wanted to make history here, and that's all I did.
Never before has a Canadian team won an NBA championship. Will they do it again? Never say never. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, New York.
As you just heard, Raptors president Masai Ujiri was an architect of that championship win, but he almost didn't get to celebrate. After the buzzer, he tried to get onto the court, but a sheriff's deputy got in his way before this camera started rolling. It allegedly escalated from there, and now there's an official complaint against Ujiri and even the possibility of charges. Kim Brunhuber explains.
A triumphant Raptors president, Masai Ujiri.
But we wanted to win in Toronto, and we were born in Toronto! Yeah!
No arguing with that. It's what happened moments before that's being disputed. Seconds after the Raptors won, Ujiri tried to get on the court to celebrate, but apparently didn't have his credentials and was prevented by a sheriff's deputy.
We know now, based on our review of the videos, body camera videos, arena surveillance video, and some of the cell phone video that's out there, that there was a confrontation between Mr. Ujiri and our officer.
This is only the aftermath. The video shows a man separating a police officer from Ujiri. Police say Ujiri had tried to push past their deputy, so the officer pushed Ujiri and told him he couldn't go onto the court. Police say Ujiri pushed him again, and during that push, his arm struck the deputy in the jaw.
We chose not to make an arrest yesterday based on the totality of the circumstances and the fact that it was a national event taking place on the basketball court. So we chose for option B.
Option B. Today they filed a complaint of misdemeanor battery on an officer, but some witnesses dispute the police account. Today, Toronto Mayor John Tory came to Ujiri's defense.
He's done a great job with the Raptors on top of all that, but his personal qualities are beyond reproach.
The Alameda County District Attorney's Office tells the CBC it will review the police submission and consider charges sometime next week. But depending on what charges are laid, the sentence can vary wildly, from a simple fine up to 3 years in jail. A stiff price for a celebration. Kim Brunhuber, CBC News, Oakland, California.
The ugliness of the Ujiri incident aside, this has been a Canada-wide celebration. And today, fans of all ages from all places have been reliving last night's historic victory. School was essentially a write-off for these kids. This is in Kitchener, the excitement from last night seeming to have spilled over.
We the North!
And in Ottawa, the celebrations will make it into the official Hansard transcripts of Question Period, where the Raptors enjoyed cross-party support today.
Let's go Raptors! Let's go Raptors!
I'm not quite sure how that fits in the rule book, but I'll check that later.
Let's go Raptors!
And check this out. They, the North. This video is making the rounds today. A graduation party interrupted by the news and an impromptu drum dance in support of the Raps. So no question this team, this win has pulled basketball fans together right across the country. But more than that, they may have even inspired a whole new generation of players. Here's Karen Pauls.
They're making the big shots, taking it to the rack. Across the country, basketball fever is high.
All of the kids are going to get inspired by the Raptors.
Basketball Manitoba is already seeing that. Danny Green is teaching a skills camp in Winnipeg in a few weeks. It's sold out and there's a wait list.
It's Buzz City for us for sure.
Just 10% of Canadians followed the NBA before the Raptors' playoff run. A recent Angus Reid poll says that number is now 40%. Its fan base young and diverse, representing Canada.
A lot of our growth is coming out of new Canadians that are arriving into Canada that may have some experience or a passion for the game elsewhere and are bringing that passion with them.
This pro player hopes kids across Canada can now see themselves playing the game.
We all start out being, 5 years old or 2 years old, picking up a ball for the first time and not knowing what we're doing. That's exactly how those NBA players started, and look where they are today.
Canadians like Andrew Wiggins, who grew up watching the Raptors and now plays against them. And RJ Barrett, expected to be a top pick in the NBA draft next week. Both of them scouted by this man.
I think the sky's the limit, and this is just the beginning. We're just scratching the surface.
He's excited about the momentum, but says investments will need to be made.
Is make sure that there are enough facilities, there are enough courts for accessibility for these kids to put themselves in a situation to be successful and chase a dream.
A dream that starts with pickup games like this one.
I'm not in a team or anything, I just play. Because it's an opportunity to meet new people and to have a chance to actually play a sport that you have never played before.
Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Okay, believe it or not, there is other news tonight, but one last thing before we move on about that parade on Monday. It all kicks off at 10 a.m. Eastern at Exhibition Place in Toronto. Open-air double-deckers carrying the team and the trophy will head east along Lakeshore Boulevard. They'll turn north at York Street and University Avenue, making their way to Nathan Phillips Square outside Toronto City Hall. And the party is scheduled to wrap up around 1:30 in the afternoon. Now, if you cannot be there in person, we've also got you covered. Adrian and CBC Toronto's Dwight Drummond will bring you the play-by-play live on CBC News Network and CBC Television starting at 10 a.m. Eastern. You can also live stream the special at cbcnews.ca or on Jam. Okay, now to some of the other stories we are following tonight, including claims of racial profiling at the University of Ottawa. A black student says he was stopped by campus security, handcuffed for 2 hours, and some of the interaction he filmed.
Have ID on you.
Stop following me. I don't have to have ID on me.
Jamal Boyce says he was stopped while skateboarding and eventually arrested for trespassing. Police were then called in, but he was released shortly after. The university president says racism has no place on campus and that a review is underway. Canadian soldiers will stay in Mali for a few extra weeks this summer. They're in the country for a peacekeeping mission and were set to be out by the end of July, but the handover to Romanian forces will now happen gradually through August.
This approach will minimize disruption in the availability of critical capacities to peacekeeping forces in Mali and help set up the Romanian rotation for success.
The UN had asked Canada to stay until October. A development in the Flint water scandal. All criminal charges against the remaining officials have been dropped, but this does not mean the case is over. Prosecutors say a new, more thorough investigation is needed and charges could be brought again. The mayor says it's good news.
We recognize that the wheels of justice move slowly, but it's like the Attorney General said, justice delayed does not mean justice denied.
To remind you, 12 people died after the city switched its water supply to the contaminated Flint River in 2014. 7 officials have already taken plea bargains. Well, Canada's legal pot market is about to get a little bigger. New cannabis products, including edibles, drinks, topicals, and extracts, will be for sale as early as the end of this year. But there are tight restrictions around what's in them and how they can be sold. Katie Simpson takes us through it.
Ever since this boutique cannabis shop opened, customers have been asking when and how can they get their hands on edibles.
There definitely is a demand for people who would like to consume edibles, not just from the standpoint of wanting to not have to smoke something, but also just some people prefer that it is a different high than what it is when you smoke, and it also lasts longer.
Those shoppers will have to be patient. Edibles will gradually hit store shelves in mid-December at the earliest. The new government regulations require all products to have extensive warning labels, and THC, the compound in pot that gets people high, will be limited to 10 milligrams per serving. Similar standards will also be put in place for cannabis extracts and topicals.
I've heard from the industry and people saying, but we could make more money if you only did this or relaxed these regulations. But quite frankly, that's not our motivation.
Ottawa says its motivation for this next phase of legalization is to eliminate the black market and to ensure Canadians who use the product make informed choices. But edibles pose some unique challenges.
With smoked cannabis, you start to feel the effects, relatively quickly. If you're using an edible cannabis product, though, it can take up to 2 hours.
Some assume that delay means the drug isn't working when it doesn't kick in right away and eat too much. There's also fear edibles may appeal to kids since many look like candy. The government says it will approve each and every product to ensure that is not the case.
We don't want to have like that traditional gummy bear that looks just like the regular gummy bears.
Just like when pot was first legalized, it may be difficult to get edibles. Because of the regulations, supply will be limited and there won't be much variety. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Ottawa.
U.S. President Donald Trump is doubling down on his Secretary of State's assertion that it was Iran who attacked 2 ships yesterday off its southern coast. One vessel, owned by a Norwegian company, was carrying oil. The other, a Japanese tanker, was loaded with methanol. No one was injured, but as the CBC's Lindsay Duncombe reports, the White House now says it has proof of who carried out the attacks and how.
What this video shows, according to the American military, is Iranian special forces retrieving an unexploded mine from a Japanese tanker. Proof, say the Americans, that Iran was behind the attack.
Well, Iran did do it, and you know they did it because you saw the boat.
Phoning into Fox News, President Trump firmly blamed Iran. An assessment Britain agrees with. The Foreign Secretary tweeted, "Responsibility for the attacks almost certainly lies with Iran," adding the latest attacks build upon a pattern of destabilizing behavior and pose a serious danger to the region.
At the moment, both sides in this dispute think that the other side doesn't want war, and the risk you have is that then they do something provocative that leads to catastrophic consequences that weren't intended.
Iran denies it's behind the attacks. President Hassan Rouhani says it is the Americans who pose a serious threat to regional and international stability. The same day as the tanker attacks, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe brought a message to Iran's supreme leader from Donald Trump that the U.S. was open to talking. Iran said no. Iran is feeling the effect of crippling U.S. sanctions, cutting off export markets for Iranian oil, a consequence of the Americans backing out of the Obama-era nuclear deal. In retaliation, Iran has threatened to cut off the Strait of Hormuz, the shipping route for around 1/5 of the world's oil. Trump was asked about that possibility today. His response? If it's closed, it won't be for long. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Washington.
And still to come, taking the pulse of last night's game literally. You'll see what happened when a cardiologist hooked some fans up to see what all that excitement was doing to their bodies. And we'll hear from 2 people who've had a big impact on the game's growing popularity in Canada, on the court and off. Yeah, we're going to be talking to former Raptor GM Glenn Grunwald and rap icon Cardinal Official just ahead. They screamed, they hugged, there were even a few tears. Okay, probably a lot of tears. Raptors fans were so overcome with emotion last night.
My blood pressure is through the roof. I'm not going. I might need to go to the hospital, dog. Like, it's crazy, man. Like, I got like a headache. I had to check my pulse a couple times, man.
He may not be alone in that. Cass Rusi watched last night's game with a cardiologist to capture the pulse of a championship game.
How was your ticker handling the thriller last night? Toronto cardiologist Jerry Kabulnik brought his friends together to watch the game in the name of science.
This is a unique opportunity to see what's going to happen to their blood pressure, what's going to happen to their heart rate.
So the cardiologist came armed with his blood pressure cuff.
126 over 78 as well.
Well, that's high.
And like any good experiment, the tests were repeated several times over the course of the night. And as the game got more nerve-wracking, the fans were getting more anxious.
You look a little tense.
I always look tense.
So his heart rate's definitely higher than it was.
What is it? What
so 84 right now?
Oh my gosh.
Studies have shown that stress inducers to the heart aren't exclusive to basketball, but happen in all high-stakes sports. During the 2006 World Cup soccer, one German study showed that when the German team played, the risk of cardiac events for men more than doubled. Another study found spectators watching a Montreal Canadiens hockey game live provoked higher heart rates than those watching on TV. And football fans, beware. The Super Bowl may lead to a small increase in heart attacks and heart failure.
Yes.
In Toronto and well into the fourth quarter, and the fans are feeling the pressure. Taylor's blood pressure is up.
150 over 82.
I didn't think it'd be that high. No, that surprises me, but...
With the NBA title so close, anxiety is rising, and so are the heart rates.
You're at 92 now.
Oh my gosh.
Despite the rise in blood pressure, Kabulnik isn't worried about these fans. They're young and have no risk factors. The enemy here is the fried food and alcohol, but that's all part of the experience.
It did seem for sure that everyone's heart rate went up progressively as the game went on.
No surprise, really, that in a nail-biter of a match, the old pumper got quite the workout last night. Cass Rusi, CBC News, Toronto.
You can say that again. Lots more from Raptorland on tonight's National coming your way. We'll catch up with a few hardy fans who were still celebrating early this morning. Plus, the Raptors have been a slam dunk for Toronto's economy this spring, but are there lasting benefits?
How will we seize the fact that we right now have a tremendous amount of momentum across this entire country?
But first, one more magical clip from last night. Check out the moment Kyle Lowry decided, basketball's passé, and he decided to grill his teammate, Fred VanVleet.
Kyle Lowry, Toronto Raptors. Fred, how does it feel to be a world champion?
It's unbelievable, man. It's unbelievable to have guys like Kyle Lowry on your team who step up and go for 15 in the first quarter, but he should have had 50. But, he slowed down, so I just want to come out there in the second half and bail him out and try to help him for his legacy. They kill my man all the time in the playoffs. He gets more slander than everybody I've ever seen in the league. And so to have him be able to hold that trophy up tonight, that's what means the most for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
That is Canada's biggest city throwing one of its biggest parties last night when the thrill of victory was fresh and clearly irresistible. But alas, all parties must eventually come to an end. Today, some people had to clean up those streets. Chances are some others called in sick. And Drake, that tireless Raptor promoter, he found his own way to mark the day after. He teased a new musical drop, promising 2 new songs to mark the championship victory. We wanted to get a sense of how other people in Toronto are dealing with the afterglow. What's it like to wake up in a city of champions? Well, as Nick Purdon discovered, some people didn't even make it to bed.
Dundas Square, downtown Toronto, just after 4 a.m. Pre-dawn on the first day where Toronto and the Raptors find themselves on top of the world.
Hey, Raps are champions!
The celebrations have been going on all night long. Only a few stragglers remain. The ones who don't want the night to end.
Let's go Raptors!
How come you're still here?
Bro, we came all the way from Montreal just to support the Raptors. We're not leaving early. The celebration continues.
What do you get from being a Raptor fan?
Me, I feel like a champion too, That they made the whole Canada feel like champions. That's how I feel, champion, We can't sleep, man. It's like, wow. Too much adrenaline, for real, man, for real.
These 3 fans, the last one standing in this square, They got me wondering, what is it we're really celebrating when we celebrate the Raptors? By 7:30, the city's more or less waking up, and I meet more stranded fans. Gentlemen, can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah, man.
Were you celebrating?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I haven't stopped.
We haven't.
This is no sleep, sir.
How was the celebration?
Amazing. Raptors, #1.
What do the Raptors give you?
Joy and happiness and camaraderie, and it brings us all together.
What would you say this team's given you?
A reason to live. I'm just kidding. I love my wife and my children very, very much. No, the Raptors are, it's confidence for the city. It's hope. Everyone's got a bit of a pep in their step this morning, and I'm remiss, man. This is, I couldn't have dreamed this situation. I really couldn't have.
And what's going on in here in your heart today?
My heart is full. My heart is full. I followed the Raptors for 24 years. I'm a devout fan. I've invested time, money, energy, and they have filled my heart. I am at 100% capacity here, because no matter what for the rest of the time, you can't take this away.
Now, if you're a fan, that's the bottom line. You want this to last forever. So this is it. This is Jurassic Park the next day, the day after, under the bright sun. Hard to believe what happened here. How are you going to remember?
Me? Oh, I love it. I've been waiting since 1995 for this.
Let me ask you this question. What do you see in the Raptors that you want to have in your own self?
Perseverance, hard work, leadership, and never giving up. Never giving up. That's what we want.
Maybe that's the reason so many people are taking pictures. They don't want to part ways with a team that represents them, and they don't want to forget either. You know, of course people want to remember, but I think they also want to feel part of it. Let me show you what's happening right here. This is the 2-hour-long lineup to buy your Raptor championship memento. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Why are you in line?
I'd love to get one of these hats because Go Raptors Go, you're amazing.
And why do you need a hat? What for?
Because I need to represent the pride of Canada, especially with the Raptors. I'm pretty happy right now, so I need to kind of document that.
You know, what do you think we're really celebrating when we celebrate the Raptors?
We're celebrating the unity. We're celebrating the unity of Canada. Look at how quiet we are in line, how polite we are, how proud we are. That's what it's all about. Being Canadian, being together.
By lunchtime, I've been all over the city and I realize nobody said anything about the actual game. So let's talk to the experts. This is 12-year-old Solomon. What do you think about the Raptors win?
Well, I think that they did an amazing job against the Golden State Warriors. I mean, they didn't win by a lot, but like, I don't know. Something about it makes me like, I really like that game.
When the buzzer went off and the Raptors won,
I was yelling. I just opened my window and started saying, "Let's go Raptors," and I was happy.
do you ever dream of being a Raptor?
Yeah, I have.
Tell me about that.
I was dreaming, like, I grew up, and then I was playing basketball with my friends, and then after that, the Raptors coach came up to me and say, "Oh, do you want to join the Raptors?" And I said, "Yeah," and then I became a Raptor.
This is an actual dream?
Yeah, it actually is.
You had this dream?
Yes.
When?
A couple of nights ago, actually.
That's great. Of course. That's what the Raptors have given us. A reason to dream. And that's got to be what we're really celebrating. Nick Purdon, CBC News, Toronto.
Now this win, it's been 24 years in the making. This sport painstakingly built by coaches and managers and players and fans long before this particular dream team came along. So let's talk about some of the builders. Glenn Grunwald knows something about elevating a team. He was the GM of the Raptors during the Vince Carter years. Now he's working on the next generation as the president and CEO of Canada Basketball.
Toronto, did you realize that you are the champions?
But the work of building a team isn't all done on the court. Pre-Drake, Canadian rapper Cardinal Offishall has always been an ambassador for Toronto. Over the last 2 decades, he's watched both Canadian ball and Canadian hip-hop, often intertwined, shaping the city's identity on the global stage. So let's talk about the future of the team, Canada's place in the sport and on the international stage with Glenn Grunwald and Cardinal Offishall. Hey guys, you managed to get some sleep last night?
Whew, not at all.
Okay. Well, then this should make for a very interesting conversation. Cardinal, maybe I'll start with you. I mean, tell me, first of all, why are you so invested in this team? I mean, what makes this team more than just a basketball team for you?
I mean, listen, I'll just tell you, like, you know, my own little anecdote. Like, when I was a kid, I used to go and go to the Sky Dome when I was in high school and go on dates when it was at the Sky Dome. And I just remember, like, those humble beginnings, like birds flying through the Sky Dome and, you know, just, you know, where we were to where we are now. Like, it's such an incredible journey. And it's funny because I feel that the journey of basketball, the culture within the country kind of parallels the culture of hip hop within the country as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many similarities, and I think all of us have kind of come up together. So shout out to a lot of the original players from back in the day.
And Glenn, when you cast forward, I mean, what's the bigger picture here in terms of the significance of this win on the game itself in Canada?
Well, basketball has been here in Canada for a long time, but the Raptors, when they arrived back in 1995, was a great catalyst to really grow it and improve it. And now we just poured gasoline on this fire, and it's really boom times for basketball, I think, going forward, both in terms of participation, but also in terms of our fans.
Yeah, and so that's a great point, right? Because, I mean, yes, of course, this is different because they've actually won the championship, something that the franchise has never been able to do. But just to your point, I mean, this is not the first time that there's been excitement around this team, right? So does it really feel different to you?
This is unbelievable. Well, Masai and Nick Nurse and all the players took it to an unbelievable level. But our fans, I've never seen anything like this. Across the country, camping out in Jurassic Parks all over the place. It's unbelievable, the reaction and the response and the joy and fun that we see out there. It's just so wonderful to see.
And so, Cardinal, talk to me about the fans, because your relationship with them will be different from Glenn's for sure, right? I mean, you see their energy, you feel it, you drive it as well. And so how do you tell the difference between, you know, the sort of flash in the pan enthusiasm because they've won an NBA title versus something that's really genuine and that will endure for years to come?
I mean, listen, all I can tell you is that I remember in the earlier days, people never really used to be proud to wear the Toronto Raptors jerseys. You know what I'm saying? They had the big dinosaur. And, you know, I remember I used to do media runs all across America, and they would clown me all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're like, you guys have that Barney team up in Canada. But it's so amazing to not just see everybody across the entire country support our Toronto Raptors, but there's people internationally that have reached out and showed support of the Raptors. And I think you can really tell, like, the organic way that the team has grown, and this platform that we had over these finals, like, just took it to another level.
Glenn, we got to talk about the future of the team, the future of the franchise, because, I mean, the big question mark, of course, right now, the elephant in the room, Kawhi Leonard. I mean, what happens to that guy?
Well, we'll find out, but, you know, I don't think Toronto, the Raptors, Masai, Nick Nurse, anyone could have presented a better case for Kawhi to stay here in Canada. What a great experience it must be for him. Now, he may have his personal likes and dislikes, and if he wants to live in a warm weather climate, well, there's not much we can do about the climate. But whether he stays or goes, he certainly has become a legend here in Canada.
But the outcome of that decision is going to be really consequential, right? I mean, how much of the sport building that's getting done right now might be put at risk if Kawhi Leonard decides to leave?
You know, I think it'll be a disappointment for a lot of people, but, you know, we still know that we've had a good team before Kawhi was here, and we'll have a good team afterward. They have very strong ownership with Larry Tannenbaum, who, by the way, has supported basketball through thick and thin. When some of his other owners might not have been so interested in supporting basketball, he was always there, committed to the sport. So I think as long as our ownership remains strong, they have strong leadership like Masai and Nick Nurse, I think the team's going to be fine. There'll be ups and downs. We're not going to win the championship every year. But if we keep playing like we're playing with the same passion and representing Toronto and Canada so well, there'll be no issues.
Right. And so, Cardinal, I mean, so much of the work that you've done over the last several years, the last couple of decades, has been around, you know, bringing Canadian hip hop, but Canadian ball, right, onto the international stage. And so you tell me, I mean, what is Canada's place?
I mean, you know, I think that we dictate what our place is, because it started off kind of in a very, like, unsure place when it came to the landscape of Canada. We weren't sure how we felt about basketball, at least the majority of the country. But I think, you know, having lived through, you know, an era where we saw people like amazing players like Vince and T-Mac and JYD and Mo Pete and the plethora of amazing players we've had over the years, I think when it comes to basketball, the fans are really the ones that have been the people that really propelled our culture and the way that we feel about basketball into the forefront. You know what I'm saying? It's definitely about the team and what we're doing as a team, and the winning, you know what I'm saying, is definitely showing people how amazing Toronto is. But what I love is the story around it. You know, when I watch the American broadcast sometimes and I see the way that they talk about Jurassic Park and the Toronto fans, like, it's unparalleled. And I think, you know, hats off to all the fans, not just in Toronto, but across the country that have been showing support for this amazing team.
Yeah, well, the story indeed is incredible. It's a victory that Toronto will savor for some time to come and that the country will savor for some time to come. Cardinal Official, Glenn Grunwald, so good to talk to you guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
The Raptors' success has been building the economy as well. Local businesses are thriving off of fan support, but how long can that boost last? CBC's Jacqueline Hansen takes a look.
From booze to food, Raptors fans have opened up their wallets to be part of the win.
About $50 every game. Yeah, but it's worth it. I've been waiting for this my whole life, so it doesn't matter.
Spending in bars during the playoffs has been way up across the country, but sales have soared in Toronto.
It's brought a lot of energy to the city, and you know, it's good for our business.
Some fans took things to the next level, even buying flights to be part of it.
So we were over from New Zealand, just came over to watch the games.
Now lining up to spend even more money on merchandise to take home a piece of the team and the city.
We've had a great time and everyone's so friendly, and yeah, it's been really cool, very cool.
It's Toronto's image of both unity and diversity broadcast around the world that some hope may lead to another win.
We're demonstrating our values to the world, and that will only be good for business. It will only be good for the brand and the identity of both Toronto, but also the country.
The city's former chief planner says Toronto and the country now face a new challenge.
How will we seize this opportunity? How will we seize the fact that we right now have a tremendous amount of momentum across this entire country?
It's not a clear shot. Even the economic benefit of fans splurging on tickets and T-shirts is difficult to decipher.
Is this net new spending, or are we simply redirecting money we already have? And that's a very hard one to measure.
Just around the corner of this building, and you'll see Jurassic Park.
And hopes the tourism industry could ride the Raptors' wave may not play out in a big way.
If I asked you who won the NBA championship 4 years ago, 5 years ago, can you remember the city? Did it change your plans? The answer is typically no. It's a very short-term thing.
So while bars and businesses have enjoyed the run as much as fans did, the basketball bump may not last. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
And still ahead on tonight's National, more Raptors reaction in our moment. But next, what's got musicians from the Canadian North singing the blues? The high cost of keeping their art alive.
If you're coming from the North and you end up having to take a flight to start your tour, you're several $1,000s in before you even touch down on the ground.
Welcome back. A Calgary man already accused of killing 3 people is now facing another charge of first-degree murder. 27-year-old Jimmy Tong has been charged in connection to the death of a 27-year-old who was shot and killed in 2016. He also stands accused of killing 3 other men that same year. Police believe they were targeted attacks by an organized crime group. And more protests in Hong Kong, but this time they looked a little different. These women are all mothers. They gathered in the Central District to peacefully protest an extradition bill that would allow people to be sent to mainland China for trial. This follows days of violent clashes between activists and police. Protest leaders are calling for another mass rally on Sunday. Well, that's Tanya Tagaq wowing a crowd at Washington's Kennedy Center in April. She's come a long way, too. Born in Nunavut, now performing on a big stage, even profiled recently on 60 Minutes And she's just one of several artists from Canada's North having a bit of a moment right now. Their music, certainly distinct, mixing hip-hop, pop, traditional sounds, and they're finding a wider audience. People are catching on. But as Deanna Sumanak-Johnson shows us, making it big, far from home, it's not easy.
As Raptors fever sweeps Toronto, they are here representing the true North. North by Northeast Music Festival asked the Nunavut band the Jerry Cans to organize a night highlighting Arctic artists.
Iqaluit's always had lots of very talented people, and it's just now in more recent times it's been building outside of Iqaluit, outside the territory, and even outside Canada now.
With their music available on streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, the Jerry Cans have fans as far away as Australia, where they've toured. Josh Q, a musician they often play with, is about to show the audiences in the American South what Arctic soul sounds like.
I've been looking for ghosts. One that I can love the most.
We are just as good or better than any artist coming up in Canada right now.
But the challenges they face are not the same. Above all, exorbitant touring expenses in a day and age when touring is how most artists make their money. Liam Killeen manages established Canadian artists and mentors some young musicians in Whitehorse.
I started in Southern Ontario bands, and there's 50 shows between Windsor and Montreal. If you're coming from the north and you end up having to take a flight to maybe Edmonton or Calgary or Vancouver to Toronto to start your tour, you're several $1,000s in before you even touch down on the ground.
Canadian musicians, including those from the north, can qualify for provincial, federal, and private funding. But even substantial grants, close to $70,000 the Jerry Cans received from the Nunavut government last year, don't go that far. A single tour could eat up about half of that, according to Liam Killeen. However, if you're wondering if they'd ever consider moving down south...
No.
Not me.
Not a chance.
When I go outside of here, I see cement. I don't see creativity in me. When I get home, step on my home grounds, that's when I feel like all colors come out and like I can be me again.
An inspiration that feeds their music even if it doesn't quite pay the bills. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Okay, up next, an NBA championship. It's not just a team victory, it's personal.
Family means more than anything, more than all of this, but as a professional, this has been amazing for me. And just to be able to tell these stories to my kids and be able to tell my son one day that his dad's an NBA champion.
We'll have more on that. First, though, a preview of something coming up on the National. Sunday, of course, is Father's Day, and Adrian sits down with one of the most famous dads in the world, the father of Nobel laureate Malala Yousafzai. Take a look.
As you said yourself, dads are always looking for advice from other people. You have some thoughts for dads?
Yes, of course. So, like as I always mention that people ask me what I did for my daughter, and I tell them, don't ask me what I did, ask me what I did not do. I did not clip her wings. So this is the first thing, especially for the fathers in patriarchal societies. But to fathers all over the world, I'll tell them that you should believe in your children. Because if you don't believe in them, nobody else will hardly believe in them. So you should be the first people to believe in your kids, and that's all.
This trophy hoisted high, it signifies so much. History, victory. In all the hubbub of partying and celebrations, the players each got a moment to stop, hold that trophy, and pose for a very special picture. And we loved those snaps so much. Our moment belongs to them.
I feel like a champ. That's how it's supposed to be. Everywhere in Canada. This is for you, and you deserve it.
Yeah, I'm super thankful to be here, super thankful to experience this. This is a great group of guys, resilient group. Man, everybody worked so hard. If I could tell you how hard everybody worked to get here, it's been amazing.
Family means more than anything, more than all of this, but as a professional, this has been amazing for me. And just to be able to tell these stories to my kids and be able to tell my son one day that his dad's an NBA champion. Shout out to Toronto. Shout out to the city. Man, shout out to Canada. Shout out to Drake. Shout out to all of them, man. I love the support, man. Keep going, man. We brought a championship home to y'all, man. We did it for you, man. I'm so excited. I'm so proud, man. Let's go.
And there is literally nothing I could add that would do those pictures justice, so I will just let them do the talking. That's the National for this Friday, June 14th. It's been a heck of a week. Good night.